What's going down, D-Gens? Well, here we are, week 4, about a quarter of the way through the season already, and it is just flying by, and it kind of pisses me off. I love watching football and having football on TV, and it just feels like when it gets here, I'm so excited, and then it just kind of, goes to shit, because it goes really, really fast, especially if you're losing, it feels even worse. So on the video plays last week, we'll go 2-3, losing week, which really sucks. Brings the record to 5-7 for the year. Definitely need to get on the positive side of things here. But again, at least for now, there's always this next week, right? So let's look into it. We're going to just talk about what happened last week, and then we'll go ahead and move forward with a couple of things actually going forward here. So what happened last week? We had the Titans minus 1.5. Titans just get obliterated by the Packers. The Titans defense is supposed to be good at stopping the run, and they could not stop the run to save their damn life in this game with Malik Willis and really all the Packers just running over these guys all day long. The Titans, you cannot run up the middle with Sweat there and Jeffrey Simmons there, but the ends are like free game. So just be aware of that moving forward. Panthers at Raiders, under 41. Andy Dalton came through. He was much better than the Andy Dalton I've ever seen or that I remember. And so that sucks. Then we had Brian Robinson to go over 50.5 rushing yards in the Washington Bengals game. That game, very entertaining, but they just refused to use that guy. Obviously, he got some carries. He did decent with them, but he ends up with 30 yards or 30 some odd yards, and he's splitting carries back there with 4 different damn people between him and James Conner, their third string running back, and then Jaden Daniels running the ball himself. I mean, the guy gets, he's playing second fiddle to everybody over there, so whatever, that just goes sideways. The next play was Kyler Murray over 30.5 rushing yards against that Lions defense. It's really letting every quarterback run all over them. And so that was a win. That was well. Kyler goes well over that. And then the last play, and then we got another W on, was the Chargers at Steelers. Steelers minus 1.5. That line ended up going off at Steelers minus 3 by the time we get to game time. So we got closing line value there, which is obviously good. And then we get the W. So that's also good to kind of make up for some of that week. So that's how it went. Titans was just a completely wrong side. Panthers Raiders was a surprise with Andy Dalton. Didn't qualify that in the handicap as much as I should have. Washington and Bengals, Brian Robinson just not realizing he was going to split so many different ways really kind of hurt us. But the run game, it's effective when it's working for Washington, and then the wins obviously are the wins. So we'll leave it at that, but just trying to take something away from the losses. So that's number 1 on the agenda. Number 2, though, is the 3-game homestands. So we have already started this process. The Cardinals started a 3-game homestand in week 2. So weeks 2, 3, and 4, which is this last week, they've all been there in Arizona. Now, you may be wondering why the hell I'm even bringing this up. Well, good thing you asked. The home stands are really one of the biggest spots that we can take advantage of. If you go back, last year was the year I really started tracking it live, but I did back test this as well. And there's only a handful of teams that get these 3-game homestands every year, 4 or 5 of them. The 3 games away was one that was very well tracked, and that was something that Warren Sharp had done and other people had done, and they had tracked it very well. However, nobody ever did the reverse of that, so we started doing it. I started doing that. What I did find is early in the season, the first game in this set of homestands is usually the one that they drop, or it's the one that is the most difficult for the team. And my rationale on that is that if you have been on the road, even for just 2 weeks, right, or 1 to 2 weeks, I should say, when you come home and you and your family and everybody else is aware, hey, you're going to be home for the next couple weeks. These guys are professional athletes, especially in season. Their families are typically used to them. I'm assuming here, right? Obviously, going out, being on games. You're not. It's not like you leave Sunday morning, come back Sunday afternoon. Like a lot of these times, these guys are leaving. Saturday, sometimes even Friday, sometimes Thursday. Sometimes they're staying over on the East Coast or the West Coast for a week and a half. So the families are used to them kind of traveling around, and that is, when I was a very young and very early in my betting career, I thought that was a bunch of bullshit. Like, these guys are traveling, they're in first class, who cares? What I have noticed, though, is that the rest itself right now, yeah, I mean, it's great to have it. But, first couple weeks of the season, guys are okay as far as just body goes. It is really more the family aspect because these guys play distracted. They're not practicing hard. I mean, think about, and again, we're trying to relate to professional athletes here, right? So give me a grain of salt, I guess. But if you are constantly traveling and on the road, if you're a truck driver, if you're a salesman, if you're whatever, something where your job is continuing to ask you to leave and to travel, and then all of a sudden your family knows, hey, you're going to be home for 3 weeks. You can pick up the kids. You can help me with this. We can do that. We can have a barbecue. We can go here. We can have a birthday party. We can celebrate. All these things try to get crammed in. And yeah, you may still be working, but it definitely distracts you. There's definitely something else going on. And you make plans around these things. And this may not be the only thing you have going on. Just like if you were to travel and you're away from the family for 3 weeks and you're with your salespeople, right, or whoever you are, you're going to be pretty focused and honed in on whatever your job is because that's all you're doing all day, every day. You're living it, you're breathing it, eating it. Either way, the whole point of this is to say that first week tends to give these guys some difficulties. And in my head, I'm thinking their families know that they're here. They're going to give them other shit to do, and it's maybe a little bit of a distraction for that first week. Now, the Cardinals ended up winning their first game against the Rams, but that was also a Rams that played like a whole bunch of, like, they were pulling people out of the stands to play that game. Cardinals did well. They lost the second game, and they're about to go into their third game. Now, the other reason that I'm bringing this up is, number one, the Falcons had their first game of their 3-game homestand last week. Now, mind you, it's against the Chiefs. They lose that game. It's a close game, but they also don't cover the spread. Again, that could just be, hey, it just happens. Maybe it has nothing to do with their home spots. But this week, the Bears are starting their 3-game homestand. And I have kind of gone back and forth with this all week because Caleb Williams, his first time in this situation with a 3-game homestand, as far as I know, he's not married or anything. He doesn't have any kids, so maybe he doesn't have as much of a distraction. However, this is one of those, hey, you're going to be home, bro. We're going to go party. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. We can have a homecoming for whatever. I would not be surprised if he has a little bit of a setback here, at least in this first week. Now, we have to kind of counter that by saying they're playing the same Rams we were just talking about. They're playing the Rams without their receivers, without their linemen, without half their damn defense. I mean, so it's not something that's going to get my money, but if you are on the side of the Rams in this game or you've been kind of thinking about it, that is another notch in that side of the belt. The Rams actually start their 3 home games next week, but they do have a bye in the middle of that. So I don't know if that's better or worse. I've not tracked that previously, but these spots are going to continue to come up. There's a handful of these. If you're looking at the screen right now, they're going to come up. The Bears actually get a second shot at this, and that may be the better time to fade them in Week 10. But this spot is going to come up, and it comes up more this year than I've ever seen it in the past. So just be aware of this trend. Secondly, though, this trend also does another thing. The first game away from home, these teams tend to drop that game. The only teams that won their first game away from home last week were the Rams and the 49ers. I'm sorry, not even the 49ers, not the Rams either. I meant the Ravens. The Ravens won their first game away from home. There was one other team, and I apologize, I can't remember who they were at the top of my head, but it was another like a Chiefs 49ers, kind of like a definite playoff contender. Those teams have a chance to win that first game. Every other time this happened, those teams dropped their first game away from home, and it was something like 6 to 7 games of a sample size that we saw this happen, and only 1 or 2 of those teams were able to win their first game. So keep this in mind, because just like we're going to have that first game that we can kind of fade them, we're going to have another game to fade them. Every time you see this trend, you really got 2 spots to fade a team. So keep this in mind and monitor this, because this does give us a pretty good hit rate as far as that first game away from home. I believe all in all over the last 5 years, it was at about a 76% hit rate. So just, again, something for you guys to monitor. And you've been sticking with me and watching all these videos, even through a losing year. I want to definitely give you some angles at least to work at or look at. So that's second part in this video here. The next thing is going to be looking at the algorithm, because the algorithm is actually getting pretty close to being ready to go. So in full disclosure here, we really want 9 data points, right? With any sort of like mathematical stuff, we want 9 data points. But with the NFL, it's different, because we don't have a full, 9 data points. That's half the season at that point. So we're not going to wait till half the season is gone. But at 4 weeks, we typically have a very good sample size of what the coaches want to do, what the players can do physically, and kind of their style of play, as well as maybe how they want to have their defense react or not react to other teams. So 4 weeks in the last 5 years or so that I've had this algorithm going is typically about the time that it gets accurate enough to use it moving forward. So this week I have it here. I'm going to show you just the expected points and things like that, the blue teams and all that kind of stuff. But I'm not using this just yet until next week. I just want you to know that it is in the picture. I have been working on it. This isn't going away or anything like that. If you're looking at your screen right now, the teams in the dark blue are teams that I have gotten right for 2 weeks in a row. And when I say that they are right, that means they are within a touchdown of their expected points. So the algorithm that I put together, it gives us an expected point value, and we are looking for teams to finish within about a touchdown of that, or exactly within a touchdown of that. 7 points, not 8. And with that, we are going to go ahead and move forward and kind of forecast their scores. And we can use that against the other team's defensive DVOA, run DVOA, whatever their strengths are, we can kind of use it to counterbalance. So maybe sometimes it's a touchdown over, so a touchdown under, but the expected points value is very, very accurate once we get past the 4 or 5 week mark, really past the 4 week mark. In this case, like I said, there are a handful of teams. We have about, I believe, 18 and 19 teams that we've gotten right 2 weeks in a row. So that's good. And again, we'll move forward and just kind of keep this in mind. If you're looking at your screen, feel free to pause it, take your time, do whatever you're going to do. This second, like bluish, grayish row here is the expected point values for each team. Like I said, the one in dark blue is typically the closer one. And actually, so we're just right off for this Giants one, because their game was just last night at 15 points. So we're about a touchdown, just a little over. So I'll probably mark them as not being accurate for this week. But usually once we have a team right for 3 weeks in a row, that's when it becomes a purple team. And if you were following me last year, purple picks were just fire last year. I think we had like an 84% hit rate on purple picks. One last thing here is I have actually differentiated this. So I have a DVOA algorithm for run heavy teams, which is what you're looking at here, and then another DVOA for pass heavy teams. So it's all the teams are listed on both, but the way that we're going to pick which point value or expected point value we're going with is going to be based off of their play style. So that, again, we back tested this during the summer. We did see that the pass heavy teams, with the new switch to the algorithm, or the little modifications we did for pass heavy teams, it did jump us up over the 90% accuracy rate. So that's really what we're looking for. What we're looking for is over 90% in accuracy to make sure that this algorithm is even worth the time to do it. The run heavy teams were over it last year. We were at about 92%. The pass heavy teams, we were down at about 79 to 82%, depending on what week we were looking at. So definitely a big jump with that. So we'll keep monitoring that moving forward, and just know that next week, again, those picks are going to be coming in directly from this sheet. At least 1 or 2 of the picks here will be coming in. So the last thing that we're going to go over is just, of course, the picks for this week, and I'll give you some reasoning as to why. So we have the Saints at Falcons, under 42. Full disclosure, this game came in at under 43 when I got it earlier in the week. A couple reasons for this. So number one, divisional games. That is the other focus that we have here at AG Sports. AG Sports, whatever you want to call it. We are definitely in the business of finding niches, one of those being divisional games, because divisional games are the only time you get to see the same teams play twice. Typically, the first game in these divisional games end up going under. And so there's a lot of reasons for that. Number one, it's earlier in the year, of course, so the offenses aren't as humming yet. But number two, typically the teams don't want to show each other everything because they understand they are going to be playing again. Now, in this particular situation, the Saints and Falcons, they may be playing for a playoff spot the second time they match up. So I would not be surprised if these teams are pretty conservative with what they're doing. But secondly, both these teams have really good defenses, and they have really good run defenses specifically, which is exactly what both these teams want to do. Yes, the Saints have thrown it a little bit more, obviously, this year, and they've done very well with Rashid Shaheed knocking down some big passes, but they typically want to run the ball. These teams want Kamara and they want Bijan to do what they do and get out to a lead and just grind the other team down. And these defenses are not going to let them do that, or it's going to be very slow going. I think this game is going to be pretty similar to that Saints-Eagles games we just saw a week ago. The Falcons' offensive line is coming into this game kind of limping, so if I had to pick a side, I'm probably going with the Saints on this one. I also think their offense is a little bit more potent, but as far as defense goes, I don't think the Falcons are going to give up a whole lot, especially knowing that their offense is going to probably be a little under the gun here. I would really expect those Falcons to be prepared for these deep shots to Rashid Shaheed, because they've seen it happen, at least 2 weeks for week 1 and week 2, and then they saw what the Eagles did last week to slow this offense down with the Saints. I do expect this to be a pretty similar defensive game plan. Both these teams, again, I could see this being like a 17-14 kind of game. Give me the under 42. The Bills and Ravens are the exact opposite. Both teams defensively just are not where they were last year in the past. The Ravens have not really been able to stop a whole lot of anybody. Even the Raiders put up over 26 points on them. And now, mind you, the Raiders and the Cowboys both put up a lot of fourth quarter points, and that's really what pushed those games, over. But in this game, I think this is going to be a fight from the beginning. I don't think the Bills are going to come in here and start as slow as the Cowboys and the Raiders do. So I could see this game being really a shootout early and often. Both defenses don't have a lot to stop the other. The Ravens, for example, really struggle with stopping top-tier tight ends and true number one receivers. So guys like CeeDee Lamb, typically do well against the Ravens, and he did, okay last week. Rashee Rice did good in their week 1 matchup. The tight ends also usually do pretty good against the Ravens, and in this case we have Dalton Kincaid going against them. That's another play we have, is a Dalton Kincaid over 37.5 receiving yards. So make sure you match that up. If you're allowed to parlay a same-game parlay, definitely do that. But over 37.5 yards for Dalton Kincaid, and then over 46.5 points for the Bills and Ravens. Same thing, guys. I apologize. I got this earlier at 46. Check around, see if it's still out there. I have not seen any 46s, but earlier in the week it was at 46. So definitely, do some research. Just make sure you're not missing out on it anywhere. I do believe it's going to get to 47, though, if it doesn't fly over. The next one here is Steelers at Colts. Give me the Steelers minus 1.5. The Steelers have been our moneymaker. They're really, of the 5 wins we have, I believe they're like 3 of them. The Steelers defensively, as long as TJ Watt is healthy, that defense is going to keep humming. With TJ Watt, Patrick Queen, and Mika Fitzpatrick, there's not really a lot of weak spots on that defensive front or anywhere, really. Secondly, though, you have Anthony Richardson, who's been struggling to not turn the ball over because he can't throw worth the shit. Really, the Colts have relied on Jonathan Taylor and their run game pretty much every week to kind of keep the offense humming and going. And Jonathan Taylor, to his credit, has been doing awesome. He's been making miracles happen back there, and if you've watched him at all, every game there's at least 2 or 3 plays where it looks like he should definitely be stopped to the line or taking a loss or like a 1-2 yard gain, and he just breaks a tackle, breaks somebody off, whatever it is, and he ends up getting yardage that he had no right to do. So it's possible that Jonathan Taylor has another good game. If you're having him in fantasy or anything like that, I'm not going to put anything past him. But for sure, Anthony Richardson is a problem. Now you're going to put him against a really strong defense. Mike Tomlin, I would not be surprised if they get some pressure on this guy, because they've seen his inability to make good decisions and his want to throw interceptions. Even when someone's in his face, the guy's just so inaccurate. He will sail passes over his receivers and get interceptions on accident. So give me Anthony Richardson over half an interception. And then because the defense is so stifling, because I don't expect the Colts to really be able to do a whole lot, and secondly, the Colts defense is terrible against the run. It just cannot stop a running back to save its life. So give me the Steelers, who want to run the ball, who have a great defense and are going to be opportunistic with takeaways. Give me the Steelers minus 1.5. I don't know who the hell is betting the Steelers. I'm sorry, who the hell is betting the Colts? The Steelers started off as -2, and they've been bet down to minus 1.5. There is only one way the Colts win this game, and is if I guess two ways. If Jonathan Taylor just walks on water, that's number one. Number two, if Anthony Richardson is connecting on really deep shots throughout the entire game, and he puts the Steelers in spots where they have to throw the ball, that's just not their forte. That would be the way I would go about it if I was Shane Steichen. But I don't think the Steelers are going to be okay with that. They're not going to allow him to do that, and they're probably not going to give him enough time to even find the deep receivers down the field. So give me the Steelers minus the 1.5 and Anthony Richardson over half an interception. And that's it for this week, guys. So thank you for taking time to watch it. Thank you for staying tuned. I appreciate the support, you guys. Y'all have a great day. Please drop your plays below, or anything that you like or agree with below. Like, subscribe, comment, all that kind of good stuff. Y'all have a great week. Good luck, and go win some money.